Knights and castles were essential in the Middle Ages for protection and social order. Students will explore these roles by examining textual details. They'll also practice forming prepositional phrases and using prefixes like un dash and non dash to interpret words. A graphic organizer will help contrast the lives of serfs and lords, enhancing understanding through structured writing. In this lesson, students will explore the significance of knights and castles in the Middle Ages. Through reading and group discussions, they will analyze Chapter 3, Gloomy Castles and Jousting Knights, and practice grammar by identifying nouns and adjectives. Additionally, students will enhance their vocabulary with the word influential and use graphic organizers to contrast the lives of lords and serfs. Castles were often cold and gloomy, with small windows and tiny candles providing minimal light. Initially, they were wooden forts, later evolving into stone structures with deep moats. Lords lived in these castles, receiving taxes and controlling land and towns. They wore nice clothes and had enough food, unlike the serfs who worked the land. In the Middle Ages, armor was essential for knights, providing protection during battles. Esteemed knights held influential titles, often involved in sieges to enclosed territories. Ransom was a common practice to free captured individuals. Aspiring knights sought to gain status and power, navigating the complex social hierarchy of castles and jousting tournaments. Knights and castles were essential in the Middle Ages for protection and social structure. Armor provided safety in battle, while castles offered defense and control. Esteemed knights held influential titles, often involved in ransom negotiations. Aspiring individuals sought to enclose lands, maintaining power through sieges. Understanding these elements reveals their critical roles in medieval society. Knights and castles were essential in the Middle Ages due to constant rivalries and wars. Knights, esteemed for their skills, wore armor for protection. Castles served as fortified residences and defense structures during sieges. Students will explore these roles in small groups, with guided support for those needing extra help, ensuring comprehension and engagement. In the Middle Ages, young men were often required to become fighters due to rivalries among nobles, wars with other nations, and neighborhood violence. Lords raised armies from those they governed. Ordinary soldiers trained with axes, pikes, and crossbows, wearing chainmail or padded coats. Knights, however, were the most esteemed soldiers, highly regarded above ordinary foot soldiers. Knights were highly esteemed, contrasting with ordinary soldiers. They used pikes, chainmail, crossbows, and armor for protection. Unlike serfs, knights held a higher status in the feudal system, admired for their skills and bravery. Their esteemed position was marked by their ability to afford horses and armor, setting them apart from common foot soldiers. Knights, unlike foot soldiers, fought on horseback and wore metal armor, requiring wealth for horses and training. Sons of influential families often became knights. Successful knights earned money, land, or titles, enhancing their societal status. They also profited through looting and ransoms, making knighthood a lucrative pursuit. Knights earned money through battles, looting, and ransoms. Their armor, superior to foot soldiers, indicated wealth, as knights needed resources for horses and armor. This exclusivity meant knights were typically from affluent families, highlighting the socio-economic barriers in the Middle Ages. Aspiring knights began training young, leaving home to live with a mentor. Initially, as pages, they learned basic skills like swordsmanship and horsemanship. Progressing to squires, they took on more responsibilities, such as grooming horses and maintaining armor, while mastering advanced combat skills, including fighting on horseback with heavier lances. A squire, unlike a page, bears greater responsibility and learns advanced skills. Training begins early, as becoming a knight requires years of preparation. Pages learn basic skills like swordsmanship and horsemanship, while squires advance to fighting on horseback with heavier lances, essential for their future roles as knights. The dubbing ceremony marked a squire's transition to knighthood. During this event, a lord tapped the squire's shoulder with a sword, and a priest might offer a blessing. Chivalry, originating in France, defined knightly conduct, emphasizing service to lords, protection of the church, and honorable treatment of captured knights until ransom was paid. Knights participated in jousting matches to demonstrate their strength and skills. These mock battles involved knights in full armor charging at each other with lances, aiming to unseat their opponent. Jousting was not only a test of prowess, but also a source of entertainment, akin to modern sports events, offering excitement and potential rewards. Knights participated in jousting matches to showcase their strength and fighting skills, gain respect, and potentially win a generous prize. Spectators found these events thrilling, as they were considered exciting and entertaining, much like modern sports events. The privileged viewed jousting as a day of excitement and entertainment, highlighting its popularity and cultural significance. Castles were fortified structures designed for protection. They featured moats, often filled with water, and drawbridges that could be raised to block enemy access. Within the stone walls, castles stored essential supplies like water and food, ensuring inhabitants could endure prolonged sieges. Despite their defensive advantages, castles were cold and gloomy, prioritizing security over comfort. Castles were primarily built for protection rather than comfort. Constructed from strong stone, they featured defensive elements like moats and drawbridges. These structures prioritized security over comfort, with their design focused on withstanding sieges and safeguarding inhabitants. Medieval castles were fortified structures with outer walls, drawbridges, and towers. Soldiers guarded these walls vigilantly. The gatehouse served as a crucial entry point, often heavily fortified to prevent enemy access. These features highlight the strategic design aimed at defense and control, ensuring the castle's security against invasions. Castle walls often enclosed a series of small buildings, resembling a miniature town. High stone walls surrounded these structures, providing protection. Inside, individual buildings like the keep, great hall, and kitchen lined the interior, creating a bustling community within the castle's confines. The Great Hall was a multifunctional space in castles, hosting meals, entertainment, and even serving as sleeping quarters for guests and servants. It was heated by fireplaces or hot coals, with minimal lighting from small windows and candles. Noble families enjoyed music, dancing, and lawn games like tennis, croquet, and bowling, while serfs were too occupied with labor to partake. The invention of gunpowder weapons, like cannons and firearms, marked the end of knights and jousting. If a knight was disloyal or dishonest, he faced trial before a noble or king, reflecting the societal hierarchy and the importance of honor in medieval times. Knights and castles were essential during the Middle Ages due to noble rivalries, wars, and local violence. Knights differed from foot soldiers in clothing and weapons, and were more esteemed. Castles prioritized protection with walls, food and water supplies, and moats with drawbridges. Influential figures, often wealthy, played key roles in society, shaping important decisions. Let's explore influential figures and their impact. Ms. Pasquale, who convinced the mayor to install a stop sign, is influential. In contrast, a boy unable to persuade his mother to extend bedtime is not. Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of Independence, was influential in shaping our nation. Understanding influence helps us recognize power dynamics in society. Castles were cold and gloomy places. Identify nouns like castles and places, and adjectives such as cold and gloomy. An orange fire glowed inside the dark castle, with nouns fire and castle, and adjectives orange and dark. Prepositions answer where questions, like above or under the book, forming prepositional phrases with additional words. Let's explore prepositions and prefixes. Identify inside as the preposition in "the pencil is inside the book." Circle inside the book as a prepositional phrase. Now, prefixes un and non mean not and don't change adjectives, parts of speech. For example, unfamiliar means not familiar. Practice identifying these in sentences. Consider the context of words. Equal, when pizza slices are the same size. Common, when everyone wears the same color. Non-verbal, when Diana signals silence with a gesture. And threatening when dark clouds loom. These examples illustrate how prefixes and context shape meaning. Complete activity page 4.5 to reinforce understanding. Students will now focus on completing the Serfs column of their graphic organizer. Use the Middle Ages text and images to gather information about serfs' homes, work, clothing, and food. Remember to paraphrase key details and note page numbers. This exercise enhances understanding of serfs' lives compared to lords, emphasizing concise note-taking and effective use of text features. Serfs lived in simple, one-room mud houses with straw roofs. They worked tirelessly on the land, growing food for lords and their families, and paid taxes in crops and livestock. Clothing was simple, and food was scarce, often consisting of rye bread and pottage. Serfs had little power, needing the lord's permission for travel and marriage. Students should complete the serfs column in their graphic organizer, focusing on the section "If You Were a Boy Serf" for additional insights. This organizer will aid in drafting an informative paragraph about serfs in the Middle Ages. Ensure to save these organizers for future lessons.